Arpeggios can be hard to memorize and it can be difficult to make good lines with them. In this lesson I'm going to go over how you can take chord voicings you already know and turn them into arpeggios that include the extensions you have in the chord and that are also a lot easier to play. The problem you have with arpeggios is that they're a collection of 1 and 2 notes per string, which makes it a little bit difficult to play them for your right hand. And another thing is that when you play an arpeggio, then you start repeating yourself after an octave, which means that you're just repeating the same melody that you played just a second ago, but then an octave higher, which is not the strongest melody that you can come up with in a solo. So one way to work with this is to take a chord voicing and use that as an arpeggio. And there are of course different ways to do that, and I already made some lessons on other approaches to do this. But in this lesson I'm going to take a chord voicing like this, G-7 with a 9, and if we look at that as being the 2 chord in an F major scale, then so this F major scale, then we have the chord, and I'm gonna make an arpeggio shape that's gonna take this chord and then 1 other note per string. So we have already this, and then we're gonna add a note per string. In this case we're just gonna take all the notes under it, so we're gonna do. So now we have this shape, which you can play with legato, and it's easy to play fast and it's systematical, so it's easy to get around, and the melody is less predictable than if I was just playing an arpeggio because it doesn't repeat after an octave. Of course you do need to sort of sit down and figure out what notes do you want to choose and what works. Choosing notes is not going to be too difficult as long as you know what scale is fitting the chord, because most of the notes are already played within the chord. In this case we actually have, if we take a G-7 with a 9, we already have 5 notes, and the only note that I don't really want to use is the E. And you need to know of course what are the notes in the chord and how are the different notes related to, in the different notes in the scale related to that chord. But it's fairly simple to check out, and for the rest you can do a lot by ear because you only have a few options per string anyway. If we try and do the same for an F major chord, so if we take this F major 7, on the G minor I was using all notes that were under, so I had all notes that were before the arpeggio. In this one I can do the opposite, so I can go above, because that works a little bit better with the fingering where I'm at in this position. So then I will get this. So here I get an F major 7 arpeggio, but I get to add a 13 and a 9, and I have some more interesting intervals because I have part of the arpeggio is going to be like notes that are close to each other and stuff that's a little bit further away. And this mix makes the melody a little bit more interesting, a little bit more surprising than if I was just to play a simple arpeggio like this. So now we have arpeggios for the 1 chord and for a 2 chord, and let's look at how we can make one for an alto dominant so that we actually have a 2-5-1 with an alto dominant. So the alto dominant that we need is a C7 altered, and since my arpeggios are all sort of placed on this middle string set, so the 4 middle strings, I actually would like to have a C7 altered that's placed on the middle strings as well. The way I'm going to do that, I mean, of course we could just take another type of voicing, but the way I'm going to do that in this lesson is I'm just going to take the tritone substitute, because as you can tell, this is the same chord just with a different bass note, so the G flat 7 Lydian dominant, and we have the same scale, so that's the G flat Lydian dominant is D flat minor melodic, and that's of course also the same as C altered. I'll link to some lessons on altered scales if this is confusing, because I already made a few of them that are explaining this. So we have this chord, and an arpeggio we could make out of that would be something like. So now we have a 2 chord with an arpeggio, and we have an arpeggio for the alto dominant, and we have an arpeggio for the tonic. And if I connect those and put them together in a line over a 2-5-1 with an alto dominant, then I get this. So as you can tell, this approach works pretty well already by just chaining the arpeggios together. So I'm playing up one, down the next one, and I'm only changing the direction that I'm going on each string once in a while to make the melody a little bit more smooth and make a transition that works a little bit better from one arpeggio to the next. And I already have some pretty okay lines with this. So the other examples are going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take some different types of chord voicings and go over how that's going to work if you work with this approach. So the next example is a 2-5-1, the key of B flat with these voicings. And if I make arpeggios out of them and then play a line with it, that will be something like this. The last example is using these chords over a 2-5-1 in the key of C. And a line with that would be something like this. So in this one you can see that I'm mixing up. I think it's kind of clear what's going on in terms of what chords have been used, but I'm also mixing up a little bit some of the directions just to get some more interesting melodies. And you have to take a little bit care when you have a chord with an interval like this, because it can be kind of hard to connect it in a logical way, especially in this position, because we can't really go lower to connect. So that was 3 examples of how you can use this approach to make some arpeggios for different types of chord voicings. Of course, this is not the kind of thing you're going to find in a Charlie Parker solo or in a Wes Montgomery solo, but I think it's a nice way to combine something that you already know quite well, which is some chord voicings like this, and then something that really sits well on the instrument, which is this hammer-on pull-off technique and 2 notes per string, which is going to give you the ability to play something easily. It's nice to have techniques that will also work well on the instrument once in a while, which is what we don't have too often in jazz, I think. I think the way you should approach this is to mess around with it. So take voicings that you really like and then see if you can come up with arpeggio shapes that are playable and also that you think sound good, and then try and use that. I think that's the way to approach this. It's not really a static approach, as I'm leaving it open for you guys to figure out what other notes you want to add to it. And right now I talked about it in a scale position, but of course you can also do stuff where you're taking notes that are not in that position. And you can also do stuff with string skipping, so there's lots of stuff to explore and to work with here, and you can come up with your own shapes that work well with you, that you like the sound of. If this is the first time you see one of my lessons, then you can of course subscribe to my channel. I publish a new lesson on jazz guitar every Thursday, and I've been doing this for 2 years, so there's already a lot of stuff covered on my channel, so you can check out all the videos that are there. And if you subscribe, you'll stay up to date with the new lessons that are coming. If you want to download a PDF of the examples that I went over here, then you can go to my website. In the article that's accompanying this lesson, there's a PDF download of all the examples if you want to check it out away from the video. If you have any questions or suggestions or comments, then leave a comment on the video. I try to get back to everybody. And you can of course also connect with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. So connect with me there and let me know. It's always nice to get feedback. It's nice to hear what you guys want to hear lessons about, or if there's something you want to have more explanations of, or if you have ideas for something I should do differently, or give more examples of. So any feedback is always welcome. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching, and until next week.